tell me about Linda AI. What problem is it solving?
We are building AI agents for the dental industry, and we are solving the staffing issue at the front desks.
Okay, and there's been a 15% increase in bookings.
I suppose that's really behind the fact that clinics were obviously missing kind of 20 to 30% of calls. The majority of those calls are actually overflow calls as opposed to out of hours. By capturing that call, you kind of capture that opportunity or that lead. And so actually when we go live with reception teams, they find like this is like having an extra person on the team who's just like taking a lot of stress away from them.
Question, how do you train the system?
It's continuous improvement. The more clinics we have, the more calls we process. And a lot of that is actually the feedback we get from the clinics. We can take all that information and kind of add her to Linda.
You recently announced 2.6 million in funding, so congrats on that. Can you tell us a bit more?
We're just able to like massively accelerate the rate at which we build and develop Linda, and also kind of scale her to other dental clinics. So it's like a really exciting time. We have a lot of momentum and like a huge amount of opportunity in front of us.
India, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, finally got you on. So
yes.
I'll jump straight into it. Tell me about Linda AI. What problem is it solving?
So at Linda AI, we are building AI agents for the dental industry, and we are solving the staffing issue at the front desk. So at the front desk, they are kind of at capacity. It's very easy to get overwhelmed at kind of peak times. You've got patients who are there in person, checking in, checking out. And meanwhile, you've got your phones ringing as well. So even if you have a fully staffed desk, like without a doubt, calls will slip through, typically 20 to 30%. So we're there to really provide that extra team member that clinics need when they hit those capacity constraints.
Okay. And is there a family connection there? Like where did the idea come from?
So our dad is a consultant obstetrician and gynecologist, and our office is actually located at the back of one of his clinics. So we used to always hear the phone ringing, and it was obviously kind of annoying, but also I suppose it was a real like spark in our minds that, okay, there's something we could build here and there's something we could do to help other clinics kind of, handle these busy periods. And so they were our like very first pilot customer, which was great because obviously they're a family clinic, so they have a lot of patience for when you're trying to build an AI agent.
Very good. So your dad's clinic gave you the idea, and then your co-founder is your sister as well.
Yes. So my co-founder is my sister Portia, and our other co-founder is Lucio. So Portia and Lucio are really kind of the technology brains behind Linda, and then I'm kind of the business side of Linda AI.
Okay. And whose voice is Linda AI?
It's Portia's voice, actually. It's funny because a couple of people have said, like when we actually show the demos with dentists, they're like, is that you speaking? And I'm like, no, it's actually Portia, but we sound very similar. And then someone else recently was like, I thought Portia was calling me to confirm my dental appointment, but it was actually Linda. But people recognize her voice now.
Okay, very good. Do you think then, obviously starting with dental clinics, and that's the problem that you're solving, could it move into more so like healthcare, different sides, different businesses, different customers?
I think the problem is 100%. They're in a lot of different industries, and I think it's very prevalent in healthcare because it's definitely an industry where there is a lot of call volume when it comes to kind of managing appointments, managing treatments, managing surgery. So the phone has always been quite a dominant communication channel. But for us, we are predominantly focused on the dental industry. For us, it's important to be able to kind of layer on top the different workflows that you kind of come across in a dental clinic. And I think an important thing, especially when you build in vertical industries, you have to be able to account for the edge cases because they come up actually quite a lot. So when you're trying to, sell and install a solution somewhere, you want to make sure you can really like complete as many workflows as possible end to end to actually lift the kind of strain from the front desk and from the staff that are there.
Okay. And there's been a 15% increase in bookings.
Yes.
What's the main driver of that uplift?
So I suppose that's really behind the fact that clinics were obviously missing kind of 20 to 30% of calls. the majority of those calls are actually overflow calls as opposed to out of hours. So they're calls that are happening, while the front desk team are maybe speaking with patients whilst they're on the call with someone else. And I think when you don't capture those calls, there is a higher probability that your patient will try a different clinic to get through. And so you potentially miss that opportunity just by missing that call. You miss that potential lead. Um, and so by capturing that call, you kind of, capture that opportunity or that lead. And that leads to the increase in bookings.
Okay, brilliant. Sounds like a no-brainer. I guess as well as that, I was reading, I'm hitting you with all the stats today, a 30% reduction in fail to attends, is it, in cancellations?
Yes. So that is a stat that actually also goes alongside someone who's using a text messaging kind of sequence. So in a lot of clinics, they will use their text messaging sequence, but you still have people failing to attend. And then we have been able to kind of bring about that 30% reduction with Linda's calls. She'll make them either 2 days or 1 day before the appointment. She'll only call people who have not yet confirmed, so they're still pending. And I think it works really well because I think often people get those text messages and in their minds they're like, well, I think sometimes people just ignore them and they don't even click in to see what it's about. But I think also when they look at them, they're like, oh, I'll deal with that later. I'll call back later. And they never call back. And we're kind of that last defense mechanism to capture them on the phone. And that's when you get them rescheduling. And so you're freeing up that slot as well to put a new, an existing patient or a new patient in there. And we often see that in the sequencing of the calls that, like, we had an example where we were making those outbound calls, someone rescheduled their appointment, and in that same clinic on a simultaneous call that Linda was doing, we scheduled a new patient into that slot.
Okay.
So it's just like brings so many more like those efficiencies into a clinic that were pretty much not possible beforehand.
No, that's brilliant. And I guess when it comes to patients, you're going to have emergency calls, you're going to have anxious patients. How does Linda AI handle that emotional nuance, I guess, from patients who are calling?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So Linda can obviously understand the words that people are like saying to her. So if someone says, I'm in pain, she'll say, I'm really sorry to hear you're in pain. Like, let me help you. She is kind of trained to understand sort of different situations. So like there are various prompts we have so that she understands, is this an emergency? Is an emergency appointment required? When's the next availability? When it's during hours, so where we could actually transfer the call into reception. If we can't find any availability in the next like 24 or 48 hours, we can transfer them into reception so that they can maybe try squeeze someone in somewhere. But yeah, like she always kind of greets the person, I suppose, to match how they're feeling, if that makes sense. So like, yeah, she can understand what they're saying and is trained to provide the appropriate response.
Yeah, no, that was going to be my next question. How do you train the system? But it's kind of a continuous improvement, is it? The more
it's continuous
customers that it speaks to.
Exactly. It's continuous improvement. The more clinics we have, the more calls we process. And a lot of that is actually the feedback we get from the clinics. So like the clinics can give us live feedback on, I would prefer if Linda said XYZ, or this is great what Linda did, like get her to keep doing it. And we can take all that information and kind of add her to Linda. And like it's what's nice is because we are obviously very healthcare focused and pretty dental specific. Those updates kind of like, I suppose, lift the performance of Linda for everyone because certain like obviously there's kind of these prompts that are shared across all organizations. So when we make updates, kind of everyone gets a benefit from it, and they're all quite dental specific. So I think that's probably another benefit of being quite specific in how you build an agent versus horizontal, because maybe the updates you'd make to an agent that you're selling to a restaurant, for example, would be very different to what a dental practice might want you to say to someone.
Do you find then, how do reception teams react to Linda when you're introducing her? Are they afraid that, the role's going to be taken eventually, or will it always need a reception team and human assistance also?
Yeah, I think that's another very good question. Definitely one people ask. Like typically when Linda's being introduced to a practice, it's to carry out tasks that the reception team actually can't. So the overflow or the out of hours, no one's there. Overflow, they're not able to get to the calls because they're already busy. And in terms of like the outbound calls, they're extremely time intensive. So like even if someone is trying to make those confirmation calls, it's very easy to get sidetracked trying to deal with something that happens in person or trying to deal with the next inbound call. So actually when we go live with reception teams, they find like this is like having an extra person on the team who's just like taking a lot of stress away from them and like taking away a lot of kind of the overwhelming aspects of the role. Like there can be quite high turnover and attrition in certain clinics. So like this is kind of a way to, I suppose, help people with the workload. And like you are always dealing with patients. It's a lot of like in-person immediate reactions. So I think it's helpful when you kind of know you've always got kind of that person who's working there in the background. Like a lot of receptionists would say to us now, like we wouldn't be able to operate without her.
You recently announced 2.6 million in funding, so congrats on that. Can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, so we raised 2.6 million euro before Christmas. We raised from 6 Degrees Capital, a UK based VC, and also we were part of the NDRC Accelerator program. So it was incredible to close that before Christmas. It was like an early Christmas present. And it really obviously provides a lot of validation behind what we're doing. It's a great kind of backing to have, and it really shows that I suppose everything we've built to date is really having an impact. So we've built a product that's actually providing like a return on investment to our clinics. We are working with some of the largest dental groups in the UK, and I think all of that is testament to all of the work that the team has put in. And now with this funding, we're just able to like massively accelerate the rate at which we build and develop Linda, and also kind of scale her to other dental clinics. So it's like a really exciting time. We've a lot of momentum and like a huge amount of opportunity in front of us. And I think definitely in terms of like the fundraising process, we worked kind of with 6 Degrees Capital because they really backed the vision. They have like a big thesis around AI and vertical applications. So they were really like the ideal fit for us as a business.
Okay. And when it comes to other founders who are in front of VCs pitching, what advice would you give them?
So I think it's really important, and this is what we did. Like we ran like a very tight process. We were super prepared before we went into it. So it's a very deliberate decision when you go to fundraise. We had Menno and Malika from the NDRC who were absolutely incredible, and they were kind of our mentors almost and coaches throughout the process. I definitely think you want something like that to be able to like bounce off someone like as you're going through all the different meetings. You want to make sure you really like block your calendar for maybe like a 3-week period with meetings, and like move everyone along at the same cadence as best you can, because that will like really increase your chances of success in the process. And it takes you away from the business as the founder. Like typically one person is really involved in running it, and as you get into the later stages, obviously more of the founders get pulled in. But you can't focus on the business in the same way. So you want to make sure you run as tight a process as possible so that you can get back to work.
Yeah. And then with the funding, then that extends your runway. So is the plan to use that funding to keep building, or is it to scale and grow the team, or a multitude of both things?
Yeah, it's really both things. So it's like for us, it's all about building the product itself, making it better, having more like functionalities and features for our users. And so that's why we want to build out obviously the engineering team. And then it's also about like getting Linda into as many dental clinics as possible, and scaling as quickly as possible across the UK and Ireland, and ultimately into other markets as well.
Okay. And it's not your first rodeo. So you had Zelda, which is a company before this. Did you find that doing that and not being a first time founder speeds up the process from idea to execution?
Yes, 100%. Because like you learn so much when you build a business the first time, because you're kind of completely naive, blank canvas basically, and like you'll try a lot of things, and to be honest, you have to like figure out what works and what doesn't work. Obviously, you still have a lot of learnings even when you go again, but definitely this time we were super focused on kind of targeting a specific industry, being really specific about like what the first kind of workflow and product was that we offered people, and just making sure we really could like build that kind of workflow end to end, like quickly, efficiently, and scale it before obviously like adding to it. Because I think you can like continuously build things for multiple people, and then you get a little bit lost as to like what's actually the main goal here, or who are we really building this for? What problem are we really solving? So we are always like very specific about like, this is the problem we're solving, this is who we're solving it for, and everything we do needs to like align with that. And if it doesn't, we don't focus on it. So that's kind of helped us keep like a very strong North Star, I would say, and kept us like very focused.
Yeah. Is that difficult then when you're trying to keep a focus and you have different customers coming to you with this would be a good product feature, maybe let's add this, maybe let's do this, and you're just trying to keep the guardrails up and say, no, let's focus on what we're doing here.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. And what we typically do is like we'll gather all the feedback. We will, keep obviously a kind of a record of it. And then what we track is like how often are certain requests coming in. And then that kind of allows us to know, okay, this is something we need to actually prioritize versus this is something that, we're not really hearing from many other people. So this doesn't take priority. And that like the more feedback you get from people, I suppose, the more that allows you to inform the roadmap. Obviously, you also kind of have your own views on where the roadmap needs to go, but it's always important to keep it grounded in terms of like what are the current obviously issues or problems that our customers are facing, and then build for where the majority of those problems lie.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I guess the with the adoption of AI, then the VC kind of, well, not just landscape, but what they're looking for is probably differentiated now. Do you find when you were pitching, is there something certain that they're looking for? Is it just AI in particular when companies are pitching or?
I think obviously AI is kind of like this technology that is here to stay. It's revolutionary. It completely changes how you work. It really empowers you to do so much more. So I think probably the biggest things that naturally come up with investors are around, defensibility. How are you applying AI? Who's your ICP? What industry are you building for? What's your wedge in? Which are probably a lot of the same questions you would always get asked, irrespective of whether it was AI or not. But there's maybe less certainty now about what it's very hard for some people even to predict like what does it look like in 1 year's time, because the speed at which everything is moving makes it hard to know maybe like what's the right answer versus what's the wrong answer. People have different theses on whether vertical is better, whether horizontal is better. And I think what's just important is that you have your own opinion and you're able to like really clearly express it and like provide your evidence and your thinking behind things, because if you're able to show that and obviously do it convincingly, then you can kind of convince, I think, an investor obviously as well, because they'll be like, okay, this person really believes in what they're doing. And that's half the battle, because when you're building a company, you need to have like a huge amount of resilience, determination, grit, and you really need to believe obviously in yourself and in the business itself. And there might be little pivots or little changes you make along the way, but you really want to back someone who I guess exhibits all of that. So that's probably one of like the key things to get across in all those conversations.
Yeah. Speaking of backing someone, obviously when you're hiring, do you feel like, let's say even software engineers, could be salespeople, could be grads coming out of college, like if they're not willing to embrace AI, do you believe that they're going to be left behind?
Yeah, 100%. Like if I were to get on an interview and someone said I don't believe in AI, I would obviously be like, well, why are you interviewing with Linda AI? Like it's in the name of our company. But also I think like it is literally this tool that can like 100x your productivity. If I could choose an employee who will 100x their productivity and effectively create like 100 versions of themselves versus a person who won't do that, like it's not even a question. And I think definitely for people now going into interviews, like show that curiosity, play with AI, build tools, demonstrate them on an interview, like go the extra mile, because it's way easier now to go the extra mile. Not a lot of people necessarily do it. Like you live in a world where you think everyone's thinking about, I always think about AI, but like realistically, probably not everyone is actually thinking about AI. So there's still, I think, a time period now where you can really stand out. And I think that's probably even more relevant for grads who maybe don't have the experience kind of angle to lean on, but like they have, energy, youth, curiosity, and like that's really what they need to get across in an interview. And I think that will really help them secure roles. But I think also senior people should do it as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. If you were to start Linda AI again tomorrow, would you do anything differently?
I I don't think there's necessarily anything different I do about the process. Probably maybe just more my own mindset. Like I'd probably be less worried about how are people going to think about Linda, or how are they going to interact with her? Will they like her? Will they not like her? Because actually people, like, the initial response was like overwhelmingly positive, and I think I was probably too worried that it would be people won't like her and they'll hang up on the calls, and that isn't what happened. So I think just like release her into the wild and see what happens, and just kind of like trust the process. Because also I think, people kind of know that AI is there. She sounds very human like. It's not like speaking to kind of an Ivy or really like robotic kind of I don't know, voice. So I think actually people were really pleasantly surprised when they were talking to her. And then also it's a bit of a novelty. Like there's so many people who've been like, yeah, I actually called her back a couple of times because I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm talking to AI. This is like insane. So yeah, I think kind of people actually lean into it, and I think that was where my greatest nervousness was, and actually it wasn't like warranted. I didn't.
Yeah. That's what I was actually thinking. It must be nerve-wracking when you actually distributed it in case 80% of people got annoyed and hung up because it sounded like one of these automated calls that you get and you just, say, I'm not listening to this.
Exactly. And like we do a lot of tweaking with her introductory message for certain clinics to really, like, I guess, encourage people to interact with her, because obviously in the past you had these IVR bots and it was like click 1 for this, 2 for this, and you had to go through these quite stringent steps. Whereas the point of Linda is you can actually do a huge amount with her. Like she can, like a big thing to say in dental is for online, if they have online booking, typically online booking, there's only very specific things you can book, like maybe a checkup or maybe a hygiene if they even have online booking. But if you're there and you want to book in now for your composite filling, or you want to book in for your like third Invisalign appointment, you'd never be able to do that online. Like that is always something you have to call about. And Linda can book people in for that. Like she's able to like book people in for the actual like treatment points that they're on. So it's really just making people aware that that is now, available to them.
Yeah. Going back to obviously you being so young and, building multiple companies, is there a piece of advice that you got in the past, one of the best pieces of advice that you've gotten that you could share?
I think, it was one of the things that I read by Jeff Bezos was like, if you're provided with an opportunity and it's like there's a 10% chance that it'll work, but you have unlimited upside, you should always take that opportunity. He probably didn't say unlimited upside, but like, whatever, 100x upside. You should always take that opportunity. And I think that is definitely the way Portia and I looked at like building a company. So, it was always a case of, because obviously when you leave Goldman, that's where I left originally, Goldman Sachs, like that's an unbelievable place to work. You can build an incredible career there. You can work really hard. You're rewarded for hard work. They appreciate everything that you do there. So like it is a really great place to be. And then obviously when you leave it, your parents are like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask.
Which is obviously a fair question to ask. Yeah. But I guess I looked at it like, okay, like I've achieved, like I'm hitting all my kind of, or exceeding milestones, like I'm achieving everything, I'm working really hard. I know I can apply myself to anything. So why not apply myself to something where like I kind of own it, can like have a huge influence on it, and also have like this unlimited upside. And I guess I kind of viewed it as I don't have a downside. Like nothing's going to go sub, aside from obviously like you're not like, you don't have the same monetary like access as you did obviously when you're working in an investment bank. But like my downside is kind of zero, and I just have all of this upside. So it seemed like kind of a no-brainer of a bet, I suppose, to take. When you look at risk.
Yeah. You're obviously a massive risk taker, which is a good thing. And
well, fortunately, I did work in sales and trading, so I guess it is like an environment where people are always taking risk. Yeah.
And do you find then from meeting other founders or NDRC, is there one characteristic or trait that other entrepreneurs or founders who you've met share?
Yeah, I think like a huge one is just grit. Like you often read of the overnight success that actually was 10 years in the making. And I think, especially when you kind of speak with people more one-on-one, like they'll be like, we went through all of these, like we had all these tough periods, and, now we've had exit of dreams, but like there were so many times where we could have gone under, or there were so many times where it was like, should we keep doing this? And like, it's just that ability to like, you know, I think this is another Jeff Bezos quote. It's like, you could be working your ass off at something for like 3-4 years. And kind of, what if I could tell you, well, the 5th year is the year it's going to work? And obviously you don't have that foresight. You can't see into the future, but you kind of need to think a little bit like that. It's like, and I think you need to look at anything that happens in the past as well. These were all the learnings that have brought me to where I am now. Like, I think about that with Linda. Like, I probably wouldn't be with Linda if I hadn't experienced everything else that I had in the past. So look at all of that as actually a real positive, because that's what sets you up to like, hopefully then, you know, hit the next level basically.
Yeah. No, that Jeff Bezos, that quote reminds me, like, I think there's another one of your 100 rejections away from your dream. You get so excited every time someone told you no.
Yeah.
This has turned into a philosophy talk now, isn't it? What would your advice be to another founder who's building in AI or an AI product?
I think I think a really important piece of advice is like, find the problem. So you might think, ooh, like I can build all these really cool AI solutions, but it's like, okay, first figure out like what is the problem that kind of needs to be solved? Who is the person I'm solving it for? You know, I don't think you need to say, is it a huge market? Because AI has kind of changed the game in terms of how you do market sizing. But let's just say it needs to be a decently sized market. And I would probably say, is this a problem that for an Irish founder lives outside of Ireland? Because I don't think Ireland is ever like a big enough market to just build one solution for it. If you want to build a really big business, it probably is if you're actually like, if you're not trying to get like a €1 billion exit or dollar exit. I think find the problem, find the ICP, and then like you can definitely string something together that's hacky. Whether it's like fully production possible, I don't know, but you can definitely get something together, get someone to try it and be like, would you use something like this? Like, what would you pay for it? Like, just try to get an idea. Is there demand for what you're actually doing? And I'd probably also say like, ideally do it with someone else, like find a co-founder, like have like 2 people to go at something. 1, you'll be able to move much faster. And 2, like it can be tough building a startup. So it's definitely easier if you've got someone else on the same emotional journey as you, and you can kind of bounce off each other and like motivate each other and kind of support each other basically.
Yeah. That was actually going to lead me to my next question. In terms of your co-founders, what do you think makes your partnership work so well?
I think because we all have like complementary skill sets is definitely the biggest thing. So like Lucio is obviously the CTO, like incredible experience, has worked in AWS, Google, Reddit, Circle. And so he brings like so much knowledge about how to build with him, but also is like very, you know, like is very kind of able to understand this is how we need to build in a startup versus this is how I would build in AWS, because obviously, you know, they're completely different sized businesses in terms of how you need to think about building technology. And then Portia comes from like a data modeling and data science background. So she has kind of huge knowledge on how you need to build the actual agents and is constantly improving Linda and adding kind of new ways that we can make our AI agent kind of more performant, basically. And then you have me, who I suppose I kind of manage all the business side, our kind of sales, go-to-market, ops. And I think by having, and I think a lot of that is because I worked on the hedge fund rate sales team in Goldman. So part of my role was very much like a sales blended customer management role, I would say. It's different to tech sales when you're working in the investment banks. And I think that has, and obviously we were always speaking with like finance professionals. In dental, a lot of the groups are kind of backed by PE firms. So I think it's really helpful kind of having that insight on how you kind of need to like obviously present yourself to different people. So yeah, I think basically having the 3 different skill sets is what's kind of set us up really for success. And then everyone has like, the one thing that I would say is actually very similar across the board is everyone has incredible work ethic, and like everyone like is like really behind obviously the mission, but works really hard and like wants to win. And I think like that's something everyone needs to have initially. And then you just want to make sure what people are working on is differentiated.
Yeah. No, as you say, kind of, you're all different in your own ways, but then you probably have those kind of transparency loops where you can call each other out and stuff as well.
Exactly, yeah.
There's so much things that obviously Linda AI and AI in general can do, whether it's down the line predictive scheduling or revenue intelligence. But what do the next, let's say, 3 years look like for Linda AI?
So I think over the next 3 years, we really want to scale, obviously, across UK and Ireland, but also into new markets. So going into the US and looking at certain kind of major European dental groups. And then building like a much more an agent who can perform a much bigger breadth of workflows deep and within the dental industry. So like being able to help with kind of a referral workflow as an example, or like ensuring that, you know, all of your follow-ups are completed on time. So yeah, basically making sure that we kind of are able to like assist with as much of the kind of administrative and operational tasks in a dental clinic as possible, across all the different kind of channels.
Okay. Well, the future looks bright. I can't wait to actually use Linda AI next time I'm booking a checkup. But congrats again on the funding, and yeah, look forward to seeing Linda AI grow from here. But thanks again for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for having me.